Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Cryptid Huntress, aka Jessica Jones. Once again, it is time for you and I to team up for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We must go Dogman hunting. Much better now that I am fully recharged, revamped, and ready to go on another Dogman expedition. Without further ado, it is time for Jessica and myself to take a walk into the darkness.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Again, we have the Cryptid Huntress, aka Jessica Jones, who has allotted some time to host with us tonight. How the heck you been, Jessica?
I've been good. I've been super busy. Thank you for having me back.
Well, first off, you're always super busy, so I should really be thanking you for investing time to come back. But this is good. I see that you've been putting out a ton of killer content, and I do try to always pop in when I can. I have so much great content to create, but every time I do have extra time frames to allot and I see yourself on, I do always try to pop in and make sure that I give you some love back. So I do appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. You're cranking out some great content yourself. Okay. So I know we're both busy, but we always have time to talk dogmen and werewolves.
Yes. Have you heard of anything new that I should be informed about, or anything in general you would like to take center stage with, my friend?
Well, I have done some deep diving and some research into the missing people in all of our national parks. And I think there could be a connection to Dogman with some of these missing people. And it's important that I think we talk about this because I am going out with my team. I have a team of cryptid researchers and cryptid hunters from out of Tennessee who I go field researching with sometimes. And we have a trip plan here in the near future where we're going to be at one national park. I can't disclose exactly where it's going to be, but we are going on a Dogman adventure. And we're going to be out bivouacking for numerous days. I'm not sure what I got myself into actually, but I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be out in the woods at a place that is teeming with dogmen and Bigfoot reports and skinwalkers and other stuff. So we're going to be out there, and of course, I did the deep dive on the missing people in the national parks, and of course, our friend David Politis, who I haven't met. I called him my friend. I don't know him, but he's done a lot of research and published some books and even movies, documentaries on the missing people. We can get into that if you'd like, because I do think that there could be a cryptid connection to some of those.
Yes, that sounds absolutely awesome. And you are going to get a chuckle real quick as we are recording. I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. And I was just speaking with Al. And Al, I told him I also had to record with you after. And he just recently texted me as we're speaking, goes, make sure you tell Jessica hello. So I just wanted to pass that on real quick. And yes, please, let's make sure to dive into what you were suggesting. That sounds amazing.
Well, I love me some Squatch Father. If you're talking about Al
Yes,
Santoriga. Okay,
yes.
that's my buddy. I love me some
Yes,
Al.
the
Okay.
Squash Father.
The Squatch Father out of New York. He's had his own Dogman experiences. He and my friend Brian Bowden or Bowden. I'm from the South. I say Bowden. Okay, but yeah. Let's get into the national parks and the missing people. Okay, so I do this thing called remote viewing, and I was given some blind targets this past week by my friend Barry, and I never know what these targets are. They're blind. I just get a set of numbers, and it turned out these targets that I got this past week were actually the origins behind the missing people at these national parks. And this is something that we talk about all the time. We're always talking about the missing persons clusters, and we're contemplating, where do these people go? What happened? Was there a cryptid connection? Was it a UFO kind of abduction? Okay, was it ETs? Was it our okay? What is taking all these missing people? Where are they going? Are they just disappearing off the face of this earth? Or are they being taken? I mean, there's obviously something nefarious going on. And we're talking about thousands of people every year going missing out of our national parks. Now, David Paulides found something very strange, that the national parks, the Forestry Commission, the agencies, they didn't keep a record, allegedly or supposedly, of any of these missing people. Now, from my standpoint as a field researcher, my teams do a lot of field research at these national parks because we have such a high concentration of Bigfoots and other cryptids at these parks. So it is a concern of ours for, our safety is to, where are these people going? And that's one of my missions, is to find out where these people are going. Well, I finally got a blind target tasked to me, and it seemed as though, according to the data that I got from this blind target, that a lot of these people are being kidnapped. They're being kidnapped. They're being taken underground to some facility, according to this data, okay, and they're being experimented on and then disposed of. And now, this is remote viewing, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's just another way to research and to look into this stuff. And I think that it's very valid. Okay, I've been trained in this for many, many years. I'm pretty good at it. We got some really strange data there. Okay, that it's not surprising. So we've kind of established something that we had suspected, that these people potentially are being kidnapped, but by who, we don't know for sure. In the data, there was something about black budget, black projects, okay, which would say that it would kind of, we would assume from that it was our agency, potentially some sort of agency of some sort doing this. But if these people are being kidnapped, let's just say, who's taking them? Okay. Now, I went on to the next show that I did, where we talked about the probability of cryptids taking these people out of these national parks. And about a year ago, I had my friend Nick Sylvester on my show, who's a big name in the truther movement. He came on my show talking about not only the cryptid breeding program that's allegedly going on, including the Dogmen and the Werewolves in this country, but he talked about how he had been told, he'd been given some inside information that our actually works with, like, I think he said 13 different types of cryptids as assets. And they are used for nefarious purposes, is what he was telling us. So now I don't know for positive if this is a real thing. I believe it could be. But I think that's kind of something that we should ponder, something we should talk about, put the possibility out there that what if Sasquatch, Dogmen, werewolves, and other things like, pale crawlers, any kind of cryptid, What if they are being used as assets and they are kidnapping people out of these national parks, particularly dogmen and werewolves? I just think it's something to think about, and I think it's important that we examine that.
That is some straight up nightmare fuel right there for sure. And I agree with all that. It is super important to make sure that we do try to pick up every unturned stone and really just dive into what's going on. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was ever verified. I do know there was news reports, and I believe I saw it on Monster Quest about how on Plum Island there was obviously a couple of the weird looking animals that washed up like the Nantucket monster, but I'm pretty sure that there was an African American gentleman that washed up that they were unable to figure out who he was or where he was from, and he had holes that were drilled into the side of his head, and he had elongated fingers and limbs. That is what it was reported from. Are you aware of that?
Now, I'm very familiar with the Montauk Monster, and that's what you're talking about with Plum Island. I'm not familiar with the gentleman who washed ashore. Now, I was just there this past year. I took a trip to Montauk with a big group of my friends, a lot of people who are actually survivors of the Montauk Project, which happened there at the tip of Long Island. We went up for the 20-year anniversary of the biorhythm portal of the USS Eldridge. Okay, so that's with the Philadelphia experiment. We went there to go see that ship potentially show back up on the ocean right there in Montauk at Camp Hero. I'm very familiar with the area. I'm familiar with the Montauk Monster that washed ashore. There were a lot of strange experiments done there. We don't know what the extent is of all the horrible experiments that have gone on there, including humans and animals. So I'm not familiar with the gentleman that washed up to shore, but I do know about the monster, which did look like a dog with a beak or something. It was really odd. So they do actually have a resident Bigfoot there on the property. They call him Junior. And we actually have a video of a Sasquatch there at Camp Hero while we were there last year.
That's terrifying right there. Actually, as you were just stating all that, and I'm listening and it's unfolding in my mind, I found the article for you. Would you like me to text it to you and you want to take a look at it real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. As stated, I don't really know the most about it. I just know that when I was watching Monster Quest and just throughout research in general, I found stuff like this to be interesting. I always like to learn. And when I had heard about some of these strange animals that washed up and what was going on, it was around the time frame. I think this was 2010 that this body washed up too. And it's just really interesting. I mean, sure, yeah, I guess he could have been a normal person like the rest of us, but just the fact that he coincidentally washes up in an area that's near Plum Island where other strange things have washed up. And like I said, the fact that he had very long fingers, and I don't know the exact how detail the New York Post goes into that, but I do know, like I stated on Monster Quest and other ones, they really dove into it a ton.
Oh, I just read the article. Thank you for sending that. It sounds suspicious for sure. Why would they even mention that he had very long fingers?
That's what I'm
my
saying.
question.
You see what I'm saying? It's super
Yeah.
strange. And I didn't fully read that. I was just trying to get the quickest one for you because, like I said, I've heard of the story or encounter before. So I don't know if that goes into the full detail like some of the other ones do. But yes, exactly. It's super strange, especially in the area where there is known. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Plum Island was originally created to try to control animal diseases and outbreaks, correct?
That's what they say. And as a matter of fact, when we were up there, there were a lot of signs warning us about ticks. Now,
Yes, the Lyme disease. Yep.
The Lyme disease, that's a big problem right now. We got a lot of Lyme disease. I was actually in the field yesterday. My son and I went, we took our dog. We do a lot of tracking training. I'm teaching my son to be a cryptid field researcher. Okay. And to get him used to the woods. And so we go out in the field a lot. And we were out there, we got in the car, we were covered in ticks. I had never in my life seen so many ticks. And so my dog, my son, I had to go get medicine for my dog today for ticks and fleas, actually. because it was so bad.
Jeez.
But they had signs everywhere up at Montauk, at Camp Hero, at any trail that we could walk down. They had signs up warning us about ticks. Now ticks have been weaponized, by the way. Okay. And
I was just
and
gonna
that's
say that, so keep going.
yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole. I mean,
Well, it really
dogmen
does
have
tie
ticks.
into what we're talking about, though, just in regards of what potentially is occurring and just trying to really discover stuff. All this is out there to the public. You can all look it up and read this as well. So, I mean, Jessica and I are just speaking about things that are prevalently out there. And yeah, Erich Trumpf was a head Nazi scientist that specialized in basically figuring out how to get infectious diseases into insects and such, because when soldiers were trying to go through the forests of Germany and other areas, they could already be weakened by poisoned food and insects and clothing, all kinds of stuff. So after World War II, he came over here and became one of our top insect and specialized weaponized scientist, and it's documented. People can look it up, and he actually was implementing Lyme disease into ticks. So people don't realize, though, Lyme disease is a natural bacteria that does occur in ticks before he ever played with it. Okay, but ever since then it's exploded, as you did say, especially in the areas near like Plum Island. So it's really interesting, and it does fall into the fact that, unfortunately, whether it's insect based or mammal based, we do know experimentations or scientific projects, whatever people do want to use for terminology, are occurring. So it does bring a little bit more clarity to the fact that people potentially are missing. And then now you have to realize, okay, well, what is it? And we got to start with the logical stuff. And then when the logical things don't make so much logic anymore, then you got to kind of look at some of the other things. And throughout your research, like you were diving with the missing aspects, which I guess cryptid, more or less, if you had to say you felt one was more responsible than the other, what would you roll with?
Well, historically, that's an interesting question you ask, because historically, the cryptid that does the most kidnappings would be a Sasquatch. And we have historical records of Sasquatch, Bigfoots kidnapping people from centuries ago. Okay, and they go all the way up to present day. And I've covered a lot of this on my shows. We talk about the Albert Ostman incident in British Columbia. A lot of kidnappings in the 1800s were happening, especially with women and children, including women being assaulted and impregnated by Sasquatch. Okay, so historically, it's Bigfoot. All right, but it's not to say that other cryptids are not also kidnapping humans as well. Now, I would think that if a person was kidnapped by a dogman, they may not make it out alive. You know, that's my opinion on that. But with the Bigfoots, a lot of times they're just either taken care of, they are held hostage, for lack of a better term, and they're not allowed to leave until they escape. Okay, they find a way to escape, just like Albert Ostman did in British Columbia, Canada, back in I think it was, I want to say the 1920s, but it might have been even before that. But yeah, a lot of Sasquatch kidnappings. But if what my friend Nick Sylvester says is true, and they do have cryptids working as assets and have been weaponized by, dare I say, our or any kind of agency of some sort, they could very well be taking humans. Okay, they very well could be. I've done some research. I've done some shows. I was given some remote viewing targets on a dogman that was seen at the Joe Bald Recreation Area in Missouri. My friend D.A. Roberts had asked me to do I had done a remote viewing target on that. I came across an underground facility there while I was looking into that area, and it appeared as though there were a lot of weird things being made there, like chimeras, and the dogman that he had spotted there, it seemed to have been some kind of a watcher, potentially some kind of security. I mean, it was kind of guarding the area. It didn't hurt him, and you can clearly see it in a video that he has. Something peeking, or it looks like a dogman peeking around a tree. But I don't know if they are assigned to do these kind of things or they just do them, but it is a real threat. We have a lot of threats when we're out there in the field doing our research, and just as a human, as a U.S. citizen, going and having fun at our national parks. There's some potential threats out there that most people don't even know about.
Yes, 100%. And as I'm just picturing and putting this all together in my mind, it's just, wow, baffling for sure. And it's definitely, again, nightmare fuel to think about. Hey, where are these people going? Why are they missing, etc.? It is occurring for sure. And where do you stand with, do you think Sasquatch are nice towards humanity, maybe like in the past when we were actually respectful to Earth, or do you think they're taking people? I don't see why they wouldn't take people personally. Unfortunately, it's no different than if you look at in the past when this means we're going to look at it as more humanish or maybe an ancestor amongst humankind because of the reference I'm making, but Neanderthals and other tribal peoples of the past, unfortunately, cannibalized weaker people or more peaceful people, maybe in times of hunger or just because they enjoyed it. And the reason they know that is because they found the bones cracked or the marrow sucked out just amongst the other bones of deer, moose, other animals that they were feeding on. So as stated, I don't really see why they wouldn't be taking people. But again, I don't really dive enough into that topic to really know the behavioral disputes. But as you and I spoke about before, if they're banging on the side of the houses because they're unhappy with the gifting, and I don't know, I just feel like there is kind of a loose cannonball in there a little bit with those things.
Well, that's interesting, but I've been out in the field doing Bigfoot field research since 2011, and I have never been kidnapped. Okay.
Yes.
So I can speak from experience. The most part, in general, they're not violent. They're not trying to hurt us. They're not doing anything to put us in danger, or potentially disappear us. Okay. Not the ones that I deal with. Okay. But just like humans, like I always say this, just like humans, cryptids, dogmen and Bigfoot together, they could be a lot like humans where there's a wide range of them. Okay. So
Every
some of them,
animal, yes, of course.
yeah, some of them might want to kidnap. There's a lot of humans that kidnap people. Okay. And that do
Yes.
really bad things to humans.
A lot of
So
pet dogs that are angry all the time and pet cats that are not very fluffy, even though they look like they are. So, of
right,
course, no, every animal has different behaviors. And
right.
even like stated within a subspecies, or you could take potentially, as stated, 100 dogs that are the same breed, raised in the same environment, treated well, and some might let you pet them while they're eating, and others might growl at you. And just as I stated, there's just different behavioral aspects. So, no, that makes a ton of logical aspects. What do you feel about, out of all the cryptids? Obviously, I feel Sasquatch has a ton of merit, and I do believe there is a ton of historical references about Dogman and as to what's going on. But personally, do you feel that there's any truth to what's going on with Dogman, or do you feel like it's one of those cryptids that is just almost made up throughout history?
Yeah, they're absolutely real. I do believe it. I've never come across one, but however, we have come across some interesting tracks out in the field, and we get reports of them quite often, even through the department where I live. Okay, so there's a lot of reports of these things. The people who have seen them that I know personally, I do believe them. Okay, I do believe them. I've seen a Bigfoot. Why would there not be a Dogman too? Okay, it's like that's the way I look at it, and there's just too many reports of them for them not to be real. And of course, I've remote viewed them and I've seen them through remote viewing. So I do believe they're here. They're in the three-dimensional reality that we live in. And yes, I do believe they absolutely could be taking people as well. Why not? There's 600,000 reported people. Those are people on record that go missing in the United States every year. They say of that, They say there's only 1,600 that go missing out of our national parks. I don't believe that number. Okay. I think it's way higher than that. I think that we have a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that go missing, but I think that may be the number of people that go missing and are never found again. Okay. Because search and rescue gets called in. A lot of times people either their bodies are found or they are found alive. In some way they are found, but there's a lot that are not found. They're never seen again. And those are the ones that David Paulides with the Missing 411 series reports on. Okay, those are the ones that he includes in his books. Those are the anomalous missing persons cases. And that's what I was tasked with that remote viewing target. There's 2 targets that I did. And I did the data did suggest that they were being kidnapped. Okay, a lot of them were being kidnapped. Some of them were actually being taken into, dare I say, UFOs. Okay, so I know we're here to talk about Dogmen, but I think a lot of this is very connected.
That is very interesting right there for sure. Do you feel Dogmen are maybe definitely a split as a physical entity that does live here, such as maybe relatives or even cave hyenas themselves? And also, do you feel like a version of them are paranormal based or maybe extraterrestrial too? Or how do you feel or stand on that subject?
I think Dogmen are 3-dimensional flesh and bone creatures. Okay, that's what I think. But I think that some of them do have supernatural abilities, just like humans have supernatural abilities. I mean, my goodness, I'm a remote viewer. I'm able to access my third eye and my psychic abilities. And I think that much like Sasquatch can do that, a lot of cryptids can do that, speak telepathically to each other. But I think something that really sets Dogman apart are they are able to access our Earth's natural portals. Okay, and I think that's a thing. I think that they are able to do that, just like the Sasquatch. Sometimes you see them and they're here one second, they're gone the next. I mean, who's to say they're not accessing these portals? But also they're very camouflaged. Okay, like that adaptive camouflage we talk about a lot. I think they're able to camouflage themselves. They do not want to be seen by us humans, and that's why we don't see them very often.
Would make sense right there. In any sort of animal for sure. It doesn't really, unfortunately, want to be seen by people because of how we treat animals in general. So no, it does make sense. Whereas usually like coyotes or deer and stuff, when they first see people, they just boot off. I mean, obviously you can build some sort of rapport, but no, that would make sense. I mean, why would it really? If it's going to try to be stealthy, and also predators in general don't really want to be seen. I mean, mountain lions, etc. That's not really their swag. Their whole swag in existence is stealth. I mean, every once in a while you got the brute like the grizzly bear that doesn't really care if you see him or her because they're going to get you anyhow. But majority of predators, especially like cats, are super sneaky. And I mean, coyotes are super sneaky too. Like they come up and sneak in bites from wolves or bears. Definitely 100% right there. Do you have any encounters that you think are or view as your favorites or ones that are super intriguing to you around Dogman? Or
Oh man, well I have a lot of people who've told me about their encounters, and I have some friends that are out in California that have had a really cool encounter with one. Javier with Cryptid 559 had a really cool encounter with a gigantic Dogman. Okay, muscular, and that was a really. I'm trying to think of some of it was kind of like it didn't charge at him or anything, because here's the pattern that I'm finding with a lot of the Dogman encounters is that human will encounter a Dogman, and it's very shocking, obviously, to see a Dogman. And just like myself, when I see a Bigfoot, I've seen ETs. When you see them, it takes a minute for your brain to comprehend what you're looking at. Okay, and it's like your brain kind of wants you to think that it's not real. Okay, or you want your brain to think it's not real because it's so outside of the box of the ordinary. That it really takes a minute to really focus in on exactly what you're experiencing. And some people have described them as actually even looking cartoonish. Okay, now Javier said that his Dogman sighting, it was just a gigantic, huge, muscular Dogman. Okay, my friend Cryptidville, Mark Maychek, actually, he lives up near the land between the lakes in Kentucky. He has told me about his Dogman encounter where he thought that he was looking at a deer. Okay, he was in the LBL, and he saw something moving, and he looked, and saw what he thought was a deer, and it had white until he realized this thing was moving. It looked more like a coyote, but it had white paint smeared down its face, down both sides of its cheeks, and down its throat. Okay, so it actually looked like it had put, I'm going to call it war paint, but it was basically camouflage, but it was white paint smeared down its face to look like a deer. And he actually did think it was a deer at first until it started moving, and he realized that it was an actual dog, like a bipedal dog with paint smeared down its face.
Jeez, crow, that's super cool, but it's not cool for the individuals that are experiencing it. So I always tend to try when people are telling me their encounters, because I always have a very childish type imagination where I'm intrigued by everything, and that's so cool. But as obviously someone that's telling you something, it isn't cool to them. But in my mind, just hearing about it, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. But I always have to remind myself that it's not cool to the individuals that are experiencing it, because it's nightmare fuel. But just like I stated, just to learn things and hear about that is cool to me. And I actually did interview a girl the other day from Tennessee, where she had the idea that she thought it was cool too, but her friends in the car were like, no, this is not cool. Keep driving, please. But she said if she was by herself, she probably would have got out for a second, because she's like, oh, this is cool. And I was like, yeah, that might not have been the best idea. It's interesting to see how some people tend to view it as curiosity. They're curious about it, and other people are just straight up petrified.
Oh yeah, you're never fully prepared to see something like that. I deal a lot with real life monsters, and they're not supposed to exist in this reality. And luckily for me, I've been seeing monsters since I was a kid. Okay, so it's not so scary for me. Even when I've woken up with ETs in my bedroom, you just look at it like, wow, that's weird. What are they doing here? And so for me, and for a lot of people who've been experiencing these things for a lifetime, it's not shocking. But see, it's almost like it's very traumatic, and it's almost like a lot of people need a support group to go to, and a place to go where they feel safe talking about their experiences. That's why I really enjoy doing the Bigfoot town hall meetings, and the Bigfoot conferences, and the cryptid conferences that I speak at, because what I'm finding is that I'm meeting a lot of people who come in who first of all listen to my shows, which is always a blast and amazing, but people who can relate and can relate to me. I can relate to them, they can relate to me, and they feel safe talking about their experiences because their family members, the people in their towns, people they would normally talk to, they don't understand it. And so we all need a safe place to go to talk about our experiences, and to just vent and exchange our stories.
No, you do a super excellent job with that. And it is important, like you said, because I've run into numerous people like that where they're not able to really distinguish what occurred with people they would like to be able to, like their family members or ones that are close to them, because they might just be razzing them. And some people take it a different way. Like, Al was telling me about how when he, for example, knew the Patty film was legit, his buddies were all razzing him, right? Well, fast forward, we know it's legit, and he knew it was legit back then. So depending on how your personality is, razzing, you might be able to, who cares? You still talk about what you saw. But then other people that are already on the border of not wanting to really speak about it, and then they get bullied or trolled, of course they're going to clamor up. And also, who really wants to consistently speak about something that's traumatizing? I mean, I don't know about you, but I try to always just laugh and think about things that are positive. I mean, we all have traumatic things that occur to us in our life, but I mean, I don't really try to think about those that occurred to me when I was younger. I mean, who wants to replay that all the time? I mean, if it was something of relevance, like to, pass on your encounter or something, then sure, it's for a good purpose. But overall, if you're getting bullied, then you're supposed to relive that on top of that? Of course not. So that all makes a ton of logical sense. And I think, like I stated, you do a really good job with sitting down with people and also doing good research and just really picking people's mind, but also putting a ton of really cool theories out there as well, and just really backing up a ton of stuff. So no, I appreciate you and your research for sure, my friend.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm just sharing my story. I try to put a light touch to everything and not be so serious. We can't take ourselves too seriously when it comes to talking about monsters and stuff. I mean, it's very serious. Like I stated in the beginning, I am planning a Dogman. I'm just going to say an expedition, but it's with a small group of people, some good friends of mine who we go out and do some research together, and we're going to some uncharted territory here in the next near future, let's just say. And it's going to be a scary experience. It's not all fun and games. To me, it's fun, okay, but to the normal human, I don't recommend doing what I do. Don't do anything I do, okay? But I'll be back to talk about it after we do it.
Yes, please do be safe. And no, that is so true. But see, I guess that's good. You understand it because, like you said, oh, this is cool. But then to others, they're like, no, this is extremely dangerous. And same thing when someone's telling me
Right.
their encounter, I'm like, yeah, this is so cool. And they're like, no. I mean, I don't say that, but in my head, they're like, they're, as you can tell, not thinking it's cool. But I'm like, wow, I'm fascinated by this. So it's definitely great to, like I said, always get you on and pick your mind for sure. So please do keep me and everyone else updated with your adventures and how things are unfolding for you. And I do look forward to our next collaboration for sure.
Always, yeah. I can't wait to come back and talk more Dogman stuff with you. It's always fun.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel.